This is Blind Metal Gamer, and here is how to make wrestling games accessible for players with disabilities. Hello everyone, Blind Metal Gamer here with you once again, and in this video, we're going to learn how to make a wrestling game accessible for players with disabilities. You're probably wondering, hey Blind Metal Gamer, why is it important to make a wrestling game accessible for players with disabilities? I'll tell you why. It's important because it's going to open up these wrestling games to a whole new group of people that have either had trouble playing these games or who don't even want to try them because the accessibility features are not there. So what I'm going to do in this video is go over some features that would help make all wrestling games accessible for players with disabilities. And I'm going to start with screen reader support. So in this footage you're seeing here on the select screen of AEW Fight Forever, that's what I'm using, you will see that there is no screen reader support. There's no screen reader support throughout the whole game. So navigating menus, selecting your character is all undoable if you are totally blind or visually impaired. If you cannot see to navigate the menus, you're going to need some help. So in order to make these types of games accessible, these wrestling games, I think that it is important that screen reader support should be added to them when they're in development. Another thing that I feel, as you're going to see here in the gameplay coming up, the control scheme. Now you're probably wondering, Blind Metal Gamer, why is it so important to have a simple control scheme? Well, it's important because if you have what are called button chords, which is where you push multiple buttons at the same time. So for example, on PlayStation, if you push square, triangle, circle at the same time, that's going to be difficult for someone to do who has motor disabilities. To make these wrestling games more accessible for them, eliminating button chords and multiple button presses is something that developers should consider doing when making these games. Now, you're going to see here in a moment something else that can be done to make these accessible. Is done right in this game, which is AEW Fight Forever, which is what I'm using for gameplay footage. The controls in this particular game are simple. They're not too hard to pick up and master. It's easy. Now, I know you're probably wondering, Blind Metal Gamer, what's this other thing you're talking about? Audio cues. Now, in this game, the option for easy counters is available in the options menu. This would be something to help players with motor disabilities as well, because originally you have to push a specific button for strikes and a specific button for grapple reversals. So for striking reversals it's a button, and for grapple reversals it's a button. By eliminating that, by making it down to either, in this case, matching the attack that your opponent does, or just make it all down to one key, one button. Just be the reversal button. That would make things easier for players with motor disabilities. Another thing that would make things easier for players with low vision, total blindness, or other visual impairments would be audio cues. Okay, for example, reversing. We, as blind or low vision players, I being one of them, when it comes to reversals, when do we know to reverse? Right now in a wrestling game, including WWE 2K, we don't know, because the audio cue is not there. All you get is a visual button prompt to push the button to indicate the time for the reversal. If you are unable to see those prompts, you don't know when to reverse, or won't know when to reverse. So I believe by having an audio cue, maybe a ding or a dong, would help with that. Maybe a ding for grapples and a dong for strikes. You know, differentiate your audio cues to know when it's time to reverse a specific strike or grapple move. Another thing that would really be helpful would be audio, when you're pinning your opponent. In this particular game, you have to push the buttons rapidly, the four buttons on the face of the controller rapidly, in order to kick out. Now again, There is no audio cue or visual cue in this, so you don't know when you're close to kicking out. I think to make this more accessible, not only to low vision players but to blind players as well, offer a visual cue and an audio cue for games that require the rapid button mini press, or maybe have a system where maybe you flick the stick. I know that WWE 2K23 has a system where you can they give you the option to either push the X button at the correct time or flick up the right analog stick to kick out of pins. Now, as far as making submissions accessible, you're probably wondering, how is this going to be doable? Well, and again, in this game and in 2K, you have to press buttons rapidly. In this game, it's a little bit easier. You just press all the face buttons rapidly until you either reach the ropes or until you get out of the submission. Again, there's no audio or visual cues for this for a game like this. And in the WWE 2K series, you have to press the appropriate button. However, the thing is, you don't know when to press that button. No audio cues. The button font is so small that it's hard to see, so if you don't know what button you're pushing, you're having to button mash. I think what they should do is kind of steal from the pin system a little bit and make it where, okay, maybe press up on the right, maybe either press up on the right stick, or maybe something they did in the latest UFC game. Maybe you rotate the right stick in a circular motion. When you feel a vibration, you know that you are going to make your opponent tap. I know that in the game in WWE 2K19 and 20, they had a great system in place. I wish that a lot of wrestling games would have this. You would have to find the sweet spot for your submissions. And what you would have to do is when you would rotate the stick and you would feel vibrations, you knew as a blind or, as a totally blind player, you were in the right spot. But I think if they use that system, they should have audio cues to go with it, because I feel that having the vibration on the controller just isn't enough. Because you don't know, you can feel it, okay, when you're in that system, but you don't know, as far as like when you're not in that system. So there should be some audio cues for that too. As for the effect of audio cues, for strikes and grapples, yeah, maybe give us the option for audio cues to let us know when our opponent is close to us, or, when we're far away from our opponent. Give us more audio cues to help players that are blind or low vision. Another way to make wrestling games accessible for players with disabilities would be, as I alluded to, screen reader support. Not just for part of the game, but for the whole game. I'm talking move lists, menus, all that. Just entire screen reader support. And then, the audio cues. Simple controls. So, for example, in WWE 2K's games, you have to hit the right trigger and either the X or square button to do finishers or signatures. Okay, I get that. They want it to be different. The problem with that is, if you have motor disabilities and cannot press multiple buttons, then it's going to make things harder on that person to want to do moves. With this game, you just either hit the directional pad up, down, left, or right, this game being AEW Fight Forever, up, down, left, or right for signatures, and when you have your special state up in this game, you just flick the right stick up or down, depending on if you're grappling them or if you're in the right situation. Again, I think more audio cues would be good for signatures and finishers as well, and here's why. Again, we don't know, and by we, I mean players who are blind or low vision, won't know when they are in a signature or finisher move state if there is no audio cues. So I believe that having those options in the game are key to making wrestling games more accessible for players with disabilities. And yes, this is a challenging topic here, but I wanted it to be challenging because I wanted to showcase the reasons why these need to be made accessible. And so, what really, in my opinion, would help as far as accessibility, I pretty much named what's going to help wrestling games. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but it won't take a lot. You see, to all these wrestling game developers, it won't take a lot to make wrestling games accessible. Just add the features I explained: screen reader support, simple button controls. Okay, another thing I thought about: text customization. Give us the ability to have large text, and then maybe background and text colors. I know that you're thinking, oh my God, Blind Metal Gamer, you just said this is going to be simple. Well, it is, but the reason why I am explaining about these other two things is because if you need the text size increased to see that, then that's an option that'll help players with low vision. Again, the customizing of colors of text and backgrounds helps players with color blindness and other visual issues. So those are some things in addition to what I mentioned earlier in the video about, making wrestling games accessible. Now, again, I'm hoping my intent with this is to help educate developers of wrestling games on the importance of accessibility and how to make wrestling games more accessible to players with disabilities. Because I'm aware there are some developers out there that may not know much about accessibility, or they're not really familiar with it. So I want to use this opportunity to help educate you, the developer, on how to make these games accessible and what features you can use to make wrestling games more accessible, to open up the door for players with disabilities to really be able to step in the ring and enjoy these games just as much as someone without a disability or their typical developing peers. Now, one other thing I thought of that could make wrestling games more accessible would be, if need be, slowed down gameplay. You're thinking, oh my God, Blind Metal Gamer, what in the hell is this up with this? Why slow down gameplay? Well, that's going to give players, again with motor disabilities, time to react to those reversals. Maybe when you go into a reversal state, it'll slow down a little bit. Let players see the thing and let them react. The same with finishes and signature moves. Give players the option to slow the gameplay if they want to make it easier for them to react to a reversal or an incoming move. Again, these are just options here. And then the last real big thing I want to talk about is making these games accessible by adding background, contrast, customization. Yes, contrast modes. You're thinking, oh my God, why is this going to be so important in a wrestling game? Well, if, let's say, for example, in this gameplay you're seeing the wrestlers in a ring and an arena that I created. Let's say a player does not want to see the ramp, the crowd. They just want to see the ring and the wrestlers, because that's what they need to focus on. Give players the option to adjust the contrast to where they can see what they need to see to make the game more playable and accessible for them. So, right there are some ways for wrestling games to be made accessible for players with disabilities of all kinds. And if anyone who is developing a wrestling game has any questions or wants to know more, you can reach out to me on Twitter at BlindMetalGamer to know more, because I'll be more than happy to talk to you about accessibility and how to make these games more accessible for players with disabilities. With that being said, I hope that you all have a great day and enjoy the remainder of this AEW Fight Forever gameplay. Until next time, I've been your host, Blind Metal Gamer, saying so long everyone, and peace out.
is your winner, Jon Moxley!
Man, what a match. I'm so glad I was here to call it.
The following contest is an unsanctioned lights out match.
It's a lights out match coming up next where anything goes.
Making her way to the ring, Ruby Soho! And her opponent, Chris Savage. is your winner, Rudy Soho!
What an amazing match we had tonight.
The following contest. Making his way to the ring, Doug Savage. And his opponent, Absolute Ricky Starks.
Revolution is televised.
One, two. One, two, three. Here is your winner, Absolute Ricky Starks.
Wow, what an amazing match. And we got to call it. We got to see it.
This bout is set for one fall, and it is for the TNT Championship. Introducing the challenger, the Beast. Introducing the champion. This is Sting. One, two, three. The winner of this match, and still the TNT champion, this is Sting! Making his way to the ring, the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. And his opponent, Andrade El Idolo. One, two. One, two, three. The winner of this match, Andrade El Idolo.
What a match we just witnessed.
Introducing the challenger, Doug Savage. Introducing the champion. This is... Here is your winner and new TNT champion, John Savage.
Wow, fans, it's been incredible. What an amazing match we've had tonight.